Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us today for this 30-minute look into practices and tools that can dramatically improve your project intake processes and the demand management efforts your organization is probably working on today. My name is Tad Haas, and we're going to spend the next 30 minutes understanding some of the fundamentals around why demand management is so important, some of the current problems or challenges that exist in most people's process and tools today. We'll dive into some deeper looks and understanding of how Edison 365, our company, and specifically Business Case, might be able to help you with those. We'll go through some live demonstrations to give you a good look and feel into those key capabilities, and we'll try to answer the questions that you have as we go throughout the session today. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those in the chat area on the right-hand side of the screen. Aman and our team will get to those if we can, and we'll certainly be happy to follow up. At the end of the session, we will provide a link to a recording and or content from the session today, so you'll be able to share it with others and review it yourself. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in and get started on the details. Quickly about Edison 365, we are a software company based out of Marlow, UK, just outside of London, a great place. I'm located in our US office here in Bellevue, Washington, and we serve customers and partners worldwide with really a global award-winning approach to software and solutions. Some of the cool things that we do with our customers and our partners is really help them to drive adoption so that they have the broadest user community available to them. Most companies begin to think that our software helps them tick all the boxes and gives them the perfect kind of solutions that solve the business problems they're trying to address today. As we talk about the specific challenges around business case development and demand management, we want to help you focus on organizational success. Because as a team, and this is of course a team sport, the goals of being able to do project prioritization and then understanding where and how benefits will be delivered are two of the key activities and efforts that you need to undertake. Managing your pipeline of project requests, of new innovative ideas, and or efficiencies that could be gained by changing approaches. These are all important, and you want to be able to manage that pipeline of demand. It will help with growth, expand capabilities, and today, as much or more than ever, we need to be able to go through and help optimize the resource allocations and understand what we might need going forward. So this is an important part of how Business Case and Edison 365 can help specifically. There's a new book that just came to my attention yesterday called The Project Revolution. And it happens to be by a gentleman who leads a PMO, a global PMO in the pharma industry. And there's already talk and topics about this notion of demand management, prioritization, and really how to succeed in a project-driven world. Something to look if you're interested. But we're not the only ones talking about this topic. PMI, the Project Management Institute, has set a global standard around benefit realization management. This, of course, is a subset of the whole demand management or project intake process, designed to target specifics around how you measure payback, how you track its progress, how you present it in these type of business cases, and so on. This is important because it's new information, and this practice guide was released just in January of this year. That will help you understand some of the steps that are already outlined in the PMBOK, right? When we go through and look at the 9 blocks or the processes and the steps that we use in PMBOK or Prince2 or other methodologies, there's already lots of great thinking around these ideas. The tools from Edison 365 will really help you focus on governance, optimization, and demand management. But what does the current landscape look like? Well, today it's a myriad of tools from Excel, Word, PowerPoint, email, sort of custom-built SharePoint sites. Maybe you're using your ERP system, That's a real challenge. And if we took a survey today for the people joining the call, I'm pretty sure that Excel is going to be a big part of that, that if you are thinking about these things today, you're doing them in a SharePoint list. The ERP would be one of the other key areas, whether it's commercial or home built. I've been working with a client recently where they had a significant size document, over 10 pages, where they have all the different requirements that they want to go through and put into their business case for projects and approval. This is just a generic example, it's not theirs. So that creates some problems. And indeed, there's a need for new ways of working. Today we're getting to use all of the Office 365 tools to co-author and to collaborate. We're using things like Microsoft Teams to put us into a common working space, and this really helps. Unfortunately, those are just, again, general information worker or collaboration type tools. They don't support the specifics around the business cases or project request forms or the workflows that are created to help us reduce the delays, to understand who's got the ball. And these are important things that solutions and software can help with, and therefore the purpose and the goal of Edison 365 Business Case. Directly, business case is designed to help with those approval cycles and the prioritization, making sure that we create an environment that creates visibility, accountability, and transparency. Being able to track, articulate, and measure those benefits is very important when you look at and use the products. Standardization of working ways, of course, is good, but it shouldn't be so standardized or so rote that you don't have flexibility, such that you might have the need to do a business case for a traditional, waterfall type project, right? And that's great. Let's go through and do that. We might want to go through and manage agile projects. All of those are okay, and all of those are fully accepted in the way that you can work with Edison 365 Business Case. One of the things that we're really proud of is the fact that the tools can help you work anywhere, anytime. And what that means is that I can be in a mobile environment and I can be using my phone, and in this case you should see on the screen an Edison 365 Business Case deployment on the phone. So I can go through and see that I'm gathering ideas, capturing new project requests, and I'm working with the tool directly on my mobile phone. I can see in doing that I have currently 12 business cases available to me. I can see that I have some open ones that I might be involved in. I could, of course, hit the quick Create button, and this will allow me to pick which kind of business case that we want to go through and do. Is it IT? Is it minor break fix? Is it a marketing project, etc.? And then I can drill into those. I can interact and work with the tool directly. This helps me go through and understand that I might want to see what type of project this is or what type of request. And I can pivot these and look at them sideways and use my phone or my tablet real estate to the best of the tool's capability. And of course, reporting is important for us as well. So when we might be in our Android or our Apple device, we might want to go through and call up some reports that help us understand, what are we looking at today for the status, what kind of items would we want to work with, taking a look at the projects, and we'll show a little bit more of these on the PC as well. But that was just to give you an idea that we think mobile rocks, and it's important to be able to deliver on that capability. So Edison 365 as a suite and as an offering. We've already talked about and mentioned Office 365 as the platform for Edison 365. It is a set of modular suites, Edison 365 ideas, business case, and projects that are designed to help accelerate the business transformations you're engaged in, taking advantage of the investments you've already made in Microsoft Office 365, and whether that's Power BI or Yammer or SharePoint or Project, right? There's a whole set of tools that you can use depending upon which part of the transformation lifecycle you're in. We look at things sort of left to right in terms of building good strategy, coming up with the great project ideas, and then being able to go through and justify the spend and the effort that you'll make so that you can ultimately deliver those projects with excellence and get the benefits and the outcomes you're striving for. Specifically, we'll talk now, and in fact in just a minute we'll go into a live demo of Edison 365 business case. Projects or ideas, of course, sits up front for that crowdsourcing of great project ideas, driving these things out to your business units to get their feedback. And Edison 365 business case is designed to help us articulate the cost and benefit, estimate the resources, get the workflows, and initiate these projects such that when approved, you're ready to go through and execute. And that's important whether you're using Microsoft Project, you're using Planner, you're using Teams, you're using whatever you're using for project management, that's okay. So let's drill in. We're focused quite a bit on a great user experience. In a minute we'll talk about those live as we go through the demo, but we take a very mobile first view, as you might have seen, and that's facilitated by our card-based user experience. It's a very responsive design, so if you're on a tablet, you're on a touch PC, or you're on a mobile device, you'll be able to go through and work with that. We strive hard to give you the key performance indicators and the metrics right up front, so you'll know what's in flight, what's in play, and the type of things that you need to act on quickly. We've also set up repeatable ways of working so that you might have a workflow that is a stage-gated methodology, whether you call it A, B, C, whatever you do for your 1, 2, 3 workflows, whether they're linear or give you a much more complex way of looking at data. You can create these visualizations, you can use specific templates, and you can support the stage gate methodologies that you have in place today or are building out for your enterprise PMO. You'll see often in our conversations we like to talk about who's got the ball. Transparency and workflows are super important in getting project approvals through. Many of your organizations today have an annual cycle, hopefully being moved towards quarterly review cycles, even monthly or biweekly, where you need to be able to go through and take an assessment of, who's doing what, how far along are we, what needs to be done next. Not so much from the project management perspective, of course we support that too, but which of the project approvals is Sammy working on? Where are we at in the workflows? Who are the people involved? And what can we do with that? The product is super configurable, and I'll show you how that works in just a moment. But because we have SharePoint as the foundation built below, we give you a great tool set for being able to drag and drop using a form builder and templates to go through and let you establish the data, the intake forms, and the look and feel that you're striving for to get that kind of approach. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at a demonstration specifically. You've seen some of the things directly on the mobile device already. Let's go through on my PC here, and I'm using a touch screen, so we'll be able to zoom in and zoom out on some different things that will help us understand what we need to do. I talked before about the quick stats, and in this case we can see we've got 12 business cases that have been recently added. Several are under review, and we have yet to approve any of those particular business cases. I'll come back to the create a case in just a moment, but what I want to do, of course, is help you understand that we're working in any browser as we want to go through and look at and work with these projects. We have, or project requests, we have ways of looking at and creating sliders that help share communications about our process and things that we might want to do. And of course, because we're part of the Office 365 environment and we want to take advantage of co-authoring and sharing content inside of Teams and the PowerPoints that we might be using to justify a project, we always want to be able to get to those and participate here well as well. So all of the things that are Office 365 are available to you as we work in Edison 365 business case. Now to create a project, it's super simple. Depending, you might be the business sponsor, you might be an IT analyst that's going through and creating these cases, depends on who you want to be involved. And they could go through and say, well, is this a minor break fix? Is this a marketing project or an M&A if you're doing acquisition? Or is this an IT use case scenario where we want to go through and build out the fundamentals that help us take a project request through the approval cycle? And in this, we have a business case that allows us to fill out the backgrounds, the scopes, the reasons, and lots of other data that we can go through and tailor here. Today, you're not on the call to watch me type, so I'm going to go through and call one up that has some pre-built data that will help us get through the process. I will point out, of course, at the top of the screen, you can see that gated methodology that helps us look at this in draft, providing more details, putting it through an IT review if that's our workflow, finance review, SLT or board review, and final decisions. So it's a terrific visual way of understand where we're going in these gated methodologies. It's also important to know that I have a persona, and you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I'm logged in as my user profile, and that user profile helps me understand or secure what I can get to, what I can't, and the type of business case processes I can support, either the creation of my own business cases or some of the ones that I might be asked to review. So I can see right now there's an action item for me to review these two business cases and others that I might be managing myself. And I can go through and start to look at and review and work with these different ones as they're in different states of being. And this is important as we go through and look at that. So here, when we want to go through and look at a business case, we can start to see the methodologies that we might be using. And this is a real-world example. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, so to speak. But here is a state organization that's going through and trying to manage a health database or build one out to support their efforts around the opioid crisis. And so this is one that has been built out as an example to show that, where we can see that there's some project background information, there's some scope, there's some reasons and information we want to build around that. We then, of course, move into the things you'd expect to see around the executive summary. We might want to go through and target some of the key benefits and look at these items in a way that help us understand what will help us reduce cost, what will help us go through and manage the particulars, where those are coming from, whether it's dollars or hours or financial benefits, as well as things like timescales or risks and issues. In our case here, we can see directly that we are starting some of this work for the phase 1 funding approval in January. We're going through some design work now. We've begun the MVP work, and then we'll move into testing in the April-May time zone. Of course, this is not designed to replace a project management system if you're doing detailed schedules, but it is very helpful when you go through and start to look at the big work required to get something through the funnel. Now, additionally, we can go through and start to see cost data as we want to go through and say, well, where are our costs coming from? What are the risks that we're concerned with? And how can we go through and manage those risks and or look at the resources that we might want to go through and manage today as well. And this lets us go through and look at the fact that we've put some architectural engineers, some consultants, different folks that we care to see in the plan as we go through and staff those. Investment appraisals, of course, would be one of the things you'd expect to see most as well. And if we dive into another example, which is built out with a little bit more, we can start to see how these investments get managed through the draft cycles and what we can do with them there. So in this case, I might want to be doing my review, and if I had the abilities, I could simply approve those, reject those, ask for more data. Or what's more likely is I probably am sending this off to the next stage. So IT review is the next. If we have that okay, I could move it directly to decision or move it to the board. Let's follow the process and say, Jane, please approve. And in doing this, these comments ride along as part of the history. So again, we can know who's got the ball and what we're doing with those particular items here, and who has the responsibility to do these things next. And you can see it's moved into the IT review cycle. We often get asked about versions, and of course, yes, versions are supported that allow us to go through and keep track of what's what. The history tab here will go through and show us updates and information and comments, so you'll always be able to go through and see when things were staged in a review. You can see that I went through and updated these today, what time, and who the person was that did that. Back to the whole concept of transparency. When we look at projects and we start to take a look at some of the ones that are currently under assessment, we might want to look at more of the details. And in this case, we'll dive into Ivan's business case around this notion of checkout free stores. And you can see that there's been more built out around the executive summary. We're taking advantage of tabs that help us understand more complexity when we care quite a bit about these. We certainly also want to be able to drill down on the business analyst, who's the team involved, and what are we doing with those items as well. When we track benefits, we of course want to go through and take the best practices that PMI and others have put out there for us so that we can begin to build a little bit more detail. And here we can lay out the costs by month, by period. We can look at the financial benefits and track those as a financial payback. This is important over the course of time when we look at value returned. We can articulate non-financial benefits and other information along that line. At the end of the day, Edison 365 business case will then help you understand, when am I getting my payback? Well, if costs are the black line, I can see it's not going to happen this year. I probably want to go out a little bit further into the future to see when my payback occurs. And now you can start to see that in September of next year, the financial return we're looking for should be available to us. And there's more graphs and more data that will help us along. Great. Just taking a pause here to check to see if there's specific questions. Looks like we're good. Thank you. So this is how we would go through and use Edison 365 business case in the normal course of day. When we are administrators, or when we're people involved in setting the tool up, part of the things that we want to be able to go through and do is establish the type of views and forms and tables and types that we want to be able to go through and establish. And whether that's the ability to create an IT business case, finalization process, any of those are available to us. What's great though is that we can come in ourselves, and I'm a business user, I'm not a particular technical coder or geek at that level, but I want to be able to go through and design a form where I can simply drag and drop these things onto my workspace and say that's the one I want to be able to go through and do. I'd like to put sort of a 2-column thing down here, and maybe at the bottom of that I want to be able to do a 3-column deal. And if I choose to move these things around, that's super easy for us to go through and change the look and feel of what our form will be. At which point, then I can go through, and what I'm really concerned about is my benefits. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that into my table here. So you can see that's where I'm going to track the benefits. Up on the top, for example, or down below, I might want to drop things into stuff around timescales, around other areas, or I might want to drop specific fields onto my page. So that if I want to be able to go through and say, what's the due date of this project, and drop that in here, I can target those items. If I want to track impact or probability, you can simply see how we're dragging and dropping. Putting the executive summary in, the email of the people involved, and it's a real quick and easy way to go through and design and build these forms. The beauty is you can have different forms based off which stage of the approval cycle it's in, so it might be super simple to start and then more complex by the time you build that out. So that's a quick overview of the fundamentals around Edison 365 business case. What we'd like to do, of course, is think about how we can run reports or think about sharing this information aside from the solution itself we might want to be able to go through and create reports for different users. And that's important too. And at Edison, we think of projects and ideas often as the same thing. So we're collecting here a group of projects or ideas. You can see there's a total of 41 in my solution today that are focusing around business efficiency, that might be focused around staff satisfaction, that let me use Power BI to interact and drill through with the actual data that we're working on here. And it becomes a great way of tying projects to strategy as those are defined above. You can imagine we would also like to understand a little bit about the velocity. What's the pace and speed of new project requests? When are they coming in? How are we acting on them? How have they been rated, perhaps by the crowd, perhaps by the SLT? And really start to understand what's the stage of the projects that we've awarded, when did those come in, how did they get voted on, what's the status of these, and we can really drill through and drill down to understand which are under review and so on. Keeping track of who's contributing is important, and or we might also want to go through and take a look at things that represent our project demand or our intake funnel. So you can see on the bottom of the screen here, we've given you a dashboard that helps us understand how many new projects are in the hopper, how many are currently under review. So we can see there's several here for new product development and an innovation project. We can look at what's been awarded and or go through and see which project requests have been stalled. And this is an example then of a funnel or a pipeline that you might want to go through and use to see how things are working through the business case process. So that's a quick overview of Edison 365 business case. Look forward to answering some of your questions on that. One of the questions that came through before that Aman took right before we started on the session was around controlling visibility. I talked about that up front, that your single sign-on through your Office 365 credentials helps to manage exactly how you get into Edison 365, how it shares information in your normal course of business, and we can set up different user communities, user groups to go through and identify people with particulars. One other thing that I did want to show that was important that we missed before was this capability around the management of a particular request and understanding who's involved with the particular area here. And we can see I might be the owner, but Christopher and Paul are in fact the other people, but I might be in a position now where I need to go through and identify who my reviewers are going to be. And they may be fixed based off the type of project it is, or I can simply interact with and drag and drop who my reviewers or my approvers might be as we go through the actual activity where finance or a director or someone in a particular department would need to go through and manage that. The other thing is about documents that we share and co-author in our office environment. Those things are important too. So I just wanted to follow up and talk a little bit more about those. Now, before we wrap up, I want to certainly reiterate some of the key benefits around improving data for decision making. That's one of the fundamental benefits of working with Edison 365, having everything in one place, not a spreadsheet tied over in someone's PC or their lonely OneDrive. This is a way of managing that information and that process corporately. We want to put in place simplified but repeatable ways of working so that you can reflect the work processes for standard waterfall projects, agile projects, or major disruptive innovation efforts that you might be engaged in. Managing that transparency and getting everybody involved, so we can keep track of who's got the ball really helps with the engagement and the action of moving things forward. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to type those in the dashboard in the chat area, and we'll be happy to address those for you as well. One of the other questions that comes up about how Edison 365 business case specifically, or Edison 365 at large, is priced and made available to customers. Like Office 365, Edison 365 is a subscription service, and there's a per month per user charge depending upon who's accessing the product, and the prices are available then for that user community. So it is a subscription service like Power BI or Office 365. Our hope is that at the end of this session, you'll be interested and want to take a closer deep dive. We're very happy to set up a detailed demonstration for you so that you can get your other department heads involved or get folks interested in the possibilities that this might provide. Often organizations will want to go through and gather a pilot team to actually go out and test business case for yourself to see if it's right for you. If that's the case, you can get started with building those requests, those processes, and those flows so that you can start to accelerate your own transformations with the Edison 365 family. My name again is Tad Haas. You can reach me at tad.haas@edison365.com, LinkedIn or phone, or any of our global partners around the world, or our headquarters office out of the London area additionally. Edison365.com is our website. And of course, we'd love to have you go take a look there, gather some of the additional content and research that you might be looking for, and engage with Edison 365 to help you improve your project intake processes and your demand management efforts. Thank you for participating. We'll look forward to seeing you at our next webinar or similar sessions. Have a great day.